Hi, Assalamu alaikum. When I read the old paper, I was choking, and because you mentioned Rumi, I kind of understand where you're coming from, and I've got so many questions about your Aligarhian roots. Okay, I love your Islamic conceptualization of what's going on here, but I fear it'd be ignored or instrumentalized by our primitive secular intelligentsia. But I'm with you, and I'd like to work with you practically on this. You speak about Hukuk al-Islam, and I fear you try to shoehorn human rights, which I kind of reject as epistemicidal. In the maqasid of the Sharia, the higher objectives of the Sharia, we have dignity as one of them, and let's work with that. But to not neglect, you didn't mention the law of qisas and retribution.
In my other work,
Oh, okay. I want to read that.
Yes.
If I was to establish a voluntary DNA database of all the soldiers and people around, then we could piece together some things if victims and war children came across. Is that something you could see happening?
In the future?
BRAC could sponsor it.
Some of you being, BRAC could sponsor it.
Yeah.
If people like you who are involved in academia and in politics in Bangladesh, I would highly recommend that the Projanmo society, the generation, the new generation, should be actually empowered. There are lots of organizations and associations, if you know, in Bangladesh.
But I feel that they're all really rubbish, and I was born here, right? I feel like a political orphan. I'm really disgusted with, we see some of the primitive reproduction of it here.
Yes.
And it was worse when Shamila Bose came. You should have seen what happened. And I love your approach and the spiritual approach. Can you perhaps convey something from our akhlaqi archive to help me with this moment?
That's why culture, the akhlaq and adab are very important. They're very great questions for I have to address Fuad's question if you don't mind, because we are in the same boat here. And just a quick thing for Fuad's sake. I have written about qisas and diya and all of that in other pieces, but I shoot in human rights not because I wanted, but here I'm not talking the Western human rights, I'm talking before you are a Bangladeshi, you're a Pakistani, you're an Indian, a Christian, you're a human.
Yeah.
And that human has that right? It is not this Western concept of human right, and that's when I'm using the term human right. I'll have to elaborate it when I really do it into a written paper, but that is the kind of human I'm talking about. The human who exists before we choose what labels we want to be. You are asking this question of besides akhlaq and adab kind of literature, practically speaking, going back to reconciliation, Iran has actually started this process of seeking forgiveness. There's a ministry of forgiveness that goes home to people after murder and any kind of thing and says, will you forgive? And there have been 2 cases that people have forgiven. And on forgiving, the family that is forgiven says that they have become free, they have felt unencumbered, that they have not taken the life of another person.
We're going to take 3 questions. We're really running out of time, and the guy just came in and showed me some signals, right?
Okay.
So, no, I think he wants to come and deep breath. Then this gentleman, I'm sorry if we don't have time.
And we'll take maybe 2 or 3 together this time.
I can be very short. I think for people like us from the subcontinent and what we've seen religion do, I think it is time that we moved away from relying on things like hukuk al-insan and all this. And I think we should rely on humanity, as you mentioned. We've seen the disaster that religion is causing in Pakistan. So for us a lot of young Muslims in this country feel that they rely on religion, particularly Islam. I'm surprised that you rely on that rather than the greater humanity, because in our context, religion has been, a disaster.
Just a follow-on from that. I think it's a question of identity, and I think you started off by talking about identity, and I think I just bring it back to 41 years from 1971. We're here 26 March tomorrow. Where are we? For the Bangladeshi diaspora or any other diaspora, where are we now? We keep on going back 41 years. That's fine. We need to know it. We need to understand it. We need to get the context of it. But we're not going forward. Call it religious, call it faith, call it whatever in the context, but we're not moving forward. And unless we start moving forward and creating our own identity and figure out who it is, and it's for each individual to figure it out. But we need to move forward and stop saying, this is what happened and that's where we are. And we seem to be stuck in the past like a broken record.
Just the last one from this gentleman. We have to stop it. Sorry.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to ask a politically sort of sensitive question. I think it's been talked about because everywhere it's very relevant and no one is actually asking it. We know the government has put a so-called international war crime tribunals. My question is, from your research, have you come across any evidence where we can say, I know you already indicated it's very difficult to put measure and quantify who's responsible and to what extent. But I was wondering whether you have come across any evidence from your interviews or any other sources, whether people who have been put in trials, specifically Jamaat Islami leaders, such as Insāniyat, the ex-leader, who's been also taken prison, Ghulam Azam. I will mention two sources that I've come across, which gives very contradictory sort of evidence. One of them was talking about Professor Aligarh Muslim. His book, The Vanguard of Islamic Revolution in Pakistan, which resulted from his PhD station on MIT. He states that Maulana Abdul Nizami was leader in 71 of the student front of Jamaat at the time, which was Insāniyat, and he orchestrated and sort of encouraged and was responsible from Dhaka University to organize Aligarh and other paramilitary groups. Whereas Ghulam Azam, in his autobiography, he states an incident where he had for 8 days, and he immediately ran to the Eastern Command of the Pakistani Army based in Dhaka to inform them and to protest of what's been happening. So we have two contradictory kind of evidence from two very authoritative persons. So I was thinking, is there any other way we can ascertain to what extent, if you can quantify as such, the Jamaati leaders, especially the ones who've been accused, that they were responsible, especially for the atrocities. Even in some cases, people are saying they're also responsible for it. Or in the killings for that matter.
Here we go,
Yeah, that's not true.
Okay, maybe all these three questions are interrelated actually, about using religion and this. As I said earlier, that my work has never been focused on issues of Islam. I had studied it for a long time, but had never really thought about it till I did these interviews. It is the people who use that language. I did not come up with these words. Tawbah and Gunah and all of these words are used by the perpetrators when they're thinking about what they had done. If they are using that lexicon and that vocabulary, I have to reinsert it into the text and then understand where they're coming from. They're not coming from some, let's get away with this problem of religion. Precisely they're saying it is religion, the kind of religion that the state gave us, misguided us from the value of this religion that now I have to deal with because I'm dying. My zameen. It was, the language is, the vocabulary is theirs. I am only giving it a framework now and saying this is perhaps where we can head if this makes sense to these people. Where we're moving forward is precisely that, taking that vocabulary, because they are asking that can we move forward? Is there a possibility not to keep harping on what we have done, rather what we can become, right? And do we become that kind of lesson or the bridge through which the people in future would know never to do this again, perhaps? So we need to give the voice. Finally, a question of Jamaat and the use of religion. You find the different contradictory. I have come across evidence that say both sides of it. Of Jamaat being actually the leaders of Jamaat, not leaders, small workers of the Jamaat party, actually helping people who were to be women particularly, who were in very vulnerable position. So you get both sides of the story of being a concerned human being, and sometimes using that as a religious foil, and sometimes using religion precisely to say that this is. We did not know what was going on. At least they don't say we participated, but they would pretend that we did not know what was going on. As far as the WCT, it is not international. That is the problem. The whole problem with the WCT in Bangladesh is it's a national commission. And because of the national commission, it has, in fact, lawyers after lawyers are writing and saying that this is not the way to do a WCT. It has to be done differently. And I'm sorry Bangladesh is not paying attention, so it's getting discredited. So evidence or no evidence is not going to make any matter.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, I can't. Romana, excuse me, you don't have time, sorry. Next time, we'll invite you next time. No, excuse me. No, you have to follow my rule. Thank you. We did give you enough time. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and I hope you found it very interesting. We just want to say one thing. Really sorry that we have to finish quickly, and people are really getting interested in this subject to explore and so on. We always look for speakers, who have done research, who have been developing new, fresh approaches and coming up with new ideas. So if you know people, who are doing research in different areas, not only to do with War 71, but anything to do with Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is abroad, please pass them towards us, because we will continue to organize seminars and conferences for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.